Lloyd Austin's memo sent to troops saying he will seek President Biden's approval to mandate the COVID vaccine for active members of the military no later than mid-September or immediately after it is approved by the FDA. Joining us now, national security and political analyst and Iraq war veteran Paul Rieckhoff. He's the founder and president of Righteous Media and the host of the Independent Americans podcast. And Paul, you actually have been talking about this for quite some time and thought it would be the right thing for the military to be on the front lines of this war, just like they are on every war that they fight for this country. But it will be waiting for FDA approval at the very least. What are your thoughts on this move, at least, to try and get the military vaccinated?
It's a good move, Mika, but it's long overdue. I mean, you've been painting a picture about places like Arkansas and Florida. Consider the fact that over 30% of the military right now is not vaccinated. We can't afford to have outbreaks like we're seeing in Florida and Arkansas inside the special operations community, inside the 82nd Airborne, inside fighter pilot communities. These are the people who are literally on the front lines, and almost only 65% have been vaccinated. There is a precedent for this. George Washington mandated the very first vaccination of our troops back in 1777 when he was losing 90% of his troops to smallpox. So this is a chance for the military to lead. There is precedent. I've got more shots in my arm than I can count. And Biden, I think, really dragged his feet here. There's another point, Mika. The military can lead. I think the military having the vaccine, standing up and showing that they're strong and they're ready to do this will inspire other people who've been reluctant to take the vaccine. So I think it's an important move and an overdue move, and it's about our national security.
Hey, Paul, good to see you. As you say, this is kind of a snapshot of what's happening in the country, which is that a lot of people who've gotten a lot of vaccines over the years and done so willingly suddenly are against this vaccine. What do you think this does to the troops? I mean, if there are going to be men and women who say, I'm not taking the vaccine, what happens then?
They're probably going to get court-martialed, and they should. I mean, when I went through basic training, I pulled a list. I mean, measles, mumps, rubella. We even got something called the peanut butter shot because it was so thick it was like peanut butter, and that was supposed to stop us from bacterial infection. So we've done this before. And people who want to oppose the vaccination of our military, would they oppose body armor? Do they oppose us having helmets when we go out on patrol? It's not an option to protect yourself, and it shouldn't be an option to get the vaccine. And if you're not willing to do it, you're going to face punishment. And frankly, you should get out because you're not a team player, you don't understand science, and you're not ready to protect yourself and the people around you.
And the Secretary of Defense says this is going to go into effect in the middle of next month. We'll be watching that. Paul, I want to talk to you about Afghanistan. You, of course, formed the most influential veterans group, Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. You founded that group after serving in Iraq. I want to ask you about Afghanistan, where the Taliban is advancing quickly, capturing 2 more provincial capitals, children caught in the crossfire. NBC News correspondent Kelly Kobiea has a report from Kabul, and we'll talk on the other side.
The Afghan Air Force striking Taliban targets in the south, claiming to have killed 16 insurgents. After a rapid advance in the north, the Taliban taking over 3 cities in one day. They're now in control of at least 5 regional capitals and fighting for more. The U.S. providing some air support to Afghan forces, but no ground troops.
It's their country to defend now. This is their struggle.
Families fleeing the fighting are now homeless in Kabul. The conflict taking a toll on children, 27 killed in the last 72 hours alone, according to the UN. Faiz Nouri worked with U.S.-funded aid agencies and is applying for visas. He has 3 young sons and 2 older daughters, both educated and unmarried.
And what's your fear for your daughters?
It's very difficult for me to say it. It's very difficult.
Like so many, he's afraid he's running out of time.
Kelly Kobiea reporting there. Paul, I don't think most people are surprised, unfortunately, by what they're seeing. Many people predicted this, even those who supported the pullout of troops from Afghanistan before the 20th anniversary of 9/11. What do you think as a veteran? What do you think as a guy who's so plugged in and in touch with so many people who've served in Afghanistan? What do you think as you see these images?
It's infuriating, it's heartbreaking, and it's predictable. And I think, I support the withdrawal. I think it's the right thing to do. But I think many of us in the military and veterans community feel it didn't have to go this way. When Kirby, the spokesperson for the Pentagon, says, well, it's their problem now. Well, it's our responsibility, too. we have potentially a humanitarian disaster on our hands. Our allies who stood up for us as interpreters are being slaughtered. As many as 70,000 of them have been left behind. And the White House seems to be wanting to wash their hands of it. So we've got to recognize that, yes, we don't have to stay forever. But what are we going to do about an emerging humanitarian disaster as the Taliban rolls through the entire country? What are we going to do next? I think that's the question for President Biden and for the White House right now.
And President Biden has said, well, we retain the capability to strike if we need to, just from outside the country. As these situations flare up, as they already are, we can go in and take care of them. What does that look like to you? Does that mean American troops eventually go back into Afghanistan?
I think that's what everybody's concerned about. And remember, there's an election, because what's to say the next president can't decide we're going back in? I mean, Afghanistan has been in and out for almost 2 decades now. So we've called it Forgotistan within the veterans community for so long because it's so often off the radar unless it's terrible. Well, it's terrible now. And we need more than just a quick pullout. We need a comprehensive plan to protect our allies, to stabilize that area, and to look forward to the future. Tell the Afghan people what's going to happen next, because right now they're being slaughtered. And it is on our hands. It is our responsibility, even if we don't have troops on the ground.
And Paul, tomorrow marks 1 month until the 20th anniversary of September 11th, the horrible day that launched that war in Afghanistan. You were a 9/11 first responder. You were down there. I know we're going to be talking to you much more as we approach the anniversary here, but what are your early thoughts?
You know, we said a lot, never forget. And the question now, 20 years later, is did we forget? Did we forget what it was like to be humbled as a nation? Did we forget what it was like to come together? Did we forget what it was like to have the whole world on our side? I think that should be the lesson of 9/11, that we can come together as a nation, especially now when we're so divided, and recognize that we've got new 9/11s. We've got the pandemic, we've got domestic extremism, we've got many other challenges that are going to really hurt our nation potentially, especially if we're not together. So the message of never forget is that America can, should, and must come together, especially right now.
Paul Rieckhoff, one of the great leaders in this country and the host of the Independent Americans podcast, a must listen. Paul, thanks so much. Good to see you. Mika?
Thank you,